do this. So the path towards war is the years of 1937, 1939. One could say that Hitler could have been stopped, but that is definitely a question for the ages. Hitler is super successful in rejuvenating Germany, right? Unemployment is going to dip in Germany successfully, mostly because of these things. Why is Hitler so powerful? Is because one, he's going to rearm. Remember, the Treaty of Versailles is going to say that Germany can't have a military of a certain amount. I think it's 100,000. Actually, it might be less than that. It might be way less than that, actually. But Hitler is going to pretty much, when he comes to power in 1933, he's going to say, away with that. I don't care. Now, at that point, France, Great Britain, others should have came into Germany. You need to follow the Treaty of Versailles. But no one wants another world war, so they let Germany rearm. So people are on the kind of red flag, kind of trying to like, okay, Hitler's starting to do some things. He's also going to start breaking the Treaty of Versailles and seeing how far he can go. He has this goal, what's known as Lebensraum. Lebensraum literally means living space. He wants to expand Germany's living space for German-speaking people. So this is going to first lead to his desire to go to Austria for two reasons. One, he's Austrian. Hitler's not German, he's Austrian. Austria is also German-speaking, so therefore he wants to expand the empire. Three, he's going to go after Czechoslovakia because there's a little part called the Sudetenland, which is kind of this U-shaped part of Czechoslovakia at the time, that had about 3 million German-speaking people. Hitler is going to say that those German-speaking people are being persecuted by the Czechoslovakian government, therefore he needs to save them. The last one is Poland. There is a gap between Germany and East Prussia, which is German, and there's a gap, which is the port of Danzig. He wants to connect them, or that's his excuse, and then he's going to use that as his excuse to start World War I on September 1st, 1939. So this is the path we're going to go down here. So again, this idea of Lebensraum, he instructs his generals to start planning for this idea. First focus is Austria and Czechoslovakia. So he goes to Austria and says, hey, what do you think about reunifying? And Austria is pretty much like, cool, sounds good. All while this is happening, he is upping the army. Get this, 1935, 2 years into his tenure as the essentially leader of Germany, he's already upped the army to 500,000, which is impressive as it is. Right? 4 years later, by the start of World War II, 4.5 million people in the German army. Right? And again, this is a blatant violation of the Treaty of Versailles, and Hitler doesn't care. So the question is for the other European powers is like, how do you get Hitler not to go on a warpath? And the key word is appeasement. Appeasement is that if I appease someone, what am I doing? Yeah, you're giving in to make sure that they don't become aggressive or what they want. What I always like to talk about with appeasement is how many of you have seen like a little kid at a store, they get to the checkout line and they see the candy and they cry and whine and kick and scream until the parent gives them that candy bar, which is like to shut them up, one. But then what happens the next time that kid goes to the line and gets to the store again? One, they want it again. This is appeasement. This is exactly what happens with Hitler. Hitler says he wants Austria, which is a sovereign nation. And the European powers they have issues with this because it's just him taking it over. Well, they'll ultimately, give into this because the Austrian people are going to essentially be like, great, hi Hitler, this is wonderful. There's no resistance to him taking over Austria. So Austria does this because most of they're German-speaking people and they don't really want to fight in the first part. What happens though is once he goes to Czechoslovakia is where we get appeasement. Okay? So his first domino, Austria, no resistance. But then the question is when he starts looking to Czechoslovakia, how do you appease Hitler? Right? And so once Austria becomes a part of Germany, there's a lot of propaganda suggesting that Hitler and the German people are reuniting both sides, the German Empire, the Nazi Empire, or what's known as the Third Reich. The Third Reich is the third empire in Germany, which is supposed to last 1,000 years according to Hitler, is expanding. So if you check out Czechoslovakia, it's kind of like the thorn in the side of Germany. This little part that sticks into Germany, that kind of outer shell, is what's known as the Sudetenland. That's his next objective. So again, I have the picture here. Hitler's going to say, hey, there's 3 million Germans that, we should protect, and they're being abused. So initially he's going to go there, France starts saying, Germany, if you start doing this, we're going to not agree with this. And the problem, though, is with this is France is going to look to Great Britain and say, hey, if Hitler invades Czechoslovakia, will you back us up and will you go to war with him? And Great Britain's like, I'm not doing that yet. Because they have this guy named Neville Chamberlain. Neville Chamberlain is the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and he's going to be the biggest appeaser of Hitler. He'll essentially say, okay, Hitler, you want Czechoslovakia? Fine, this is your last treat. This is it. After this, you have to stop. And Hitler's like, well, of course. Why wouldn't I stop, right? This is all I want. I want nothing more. So the last part too, and this is state land, which we'll probably stop here too, is what's known as the Munich Conference. Major European powers down here are going to, right, Great Britain, France, Germany, and Italy are going to come to this conference and essentially give away the Sudetenland of Czechoslovakia. Well, no, who's not at the conference? The Czechs. And the Czechs are sitting there with like 2,000 people in their army going like, well, what are we supposed to do now? We can't defend ourselves? So while this Munich conference is happening, Hitler promises that this is the last thing he's going to want. The last thing. But the problem is, as this is happening, Hitler's instructed his generals to figure out a way to take over the rest of Czechoslovakia after they've taken the Sudetenland. So, is Hitler going to stop after this? Absolutely not. And here's the thing, Hitler is smart enough and he thinks, well, if they're going to give me this, what else can I take? And he's going to continue down his little warpath. So we'll kind of catch up on there tomorrow.